My name is Dan Couvret. I'm the CEO of Divorce Magazine and Family Lawyer Magazine. And today I'm meeting with Cathy Myers, who is the editor of DivorceMoms.com, and she's also has been a divorce coach for 10 years. And we're going to talk today about whether there is bias or not for fathers having custody of their children as they go through a divorce. And so Cathy will share some information about the statistics on this matter, and we'll talk about ideas to include fathers more in their relationship and how grow their relationship with their children, even if they are divorced. And so I will just give you a bit of my background. I've started publishing Divorce Magazine in 1996. So I've been in the divorce area for 20 years. I've worked with many professionals, lawyers, accountants, mental health professionals, etc. And we've developed a deep amount of knowledge, a great amount of knowledge to help divorcing people, which you'll find on divorcemagazine.com. And you'll also find information on Divorced Moms, which we also own. I'll let Cathy give you a bit of her background. Cathy, welcome to our seminar, and please tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Dan. Name is Cathy Meyer. I am a certified master coach. For a little over 10 years, I worked with coaching clients, individuals who were going through the divorce process. And my work there was related to helping people navigate and accept and process the divorce process itself and come out the other end in a better frame of mind than they went in. And now I am the managing editor of DivorcedMoms.com. That enables me to work with divorce professionals, divorce experts, and divorced women, curating content and resources and tips. And we, of course, publish it all online for any divorced mom, woman who needs help.
So you wrote an article a couple of years ago for the Huffington Post, and it was called Dispelling the Myth of Gender Bias in the Family Court System. And I'm going to give you an opportunity, Cathy, just to give our listeners a brief overview of what the article was about and kind of what conclusions you came to as a result of your research in this area.
I wrote the article based on research that I had done. There's not much research out there. There was one particular research study done by, it was analysis by Pew Research. And it talked about not only custody issues, but the behaviors of fathers after divorce. But the interesting thing I found after hearing, online and from men about the gender bias towards mothers in family court was the statistics don't hold that to be true. Let's see, 91% of all custody cases are decided in negotiations between the parents without any interference of the court. That leaves 9% that are decided either after a custody evaluation or after a judge has heard the case. And we don't know what percentage of that 9% the father ends up with custody. So, after thinking about it, you have to come to the conclusion, is it gender bias with the court, or is it self-inflicted gender bias?
And so what do you mean by self-inflicted gender bias?
Are fathers not seeking custody because they think they're not going to win custody? Fathers who are going through a divorce, they go online and they do this research and they find the men's movements groups, and it's all about the gender bias in the courts. And okay, they're going to shy away because they're being told, oh, there's this bias, so you're not going to win. You might as well not even try. Plus, there's this patriarchal attitude. Men are breadwinners, women are caretakers. You have roles in marriage. And even in today's society, we still have those different gender roles in marriage. The women are caretakers and nurturers, the men are breadwinners. So that role has a tendency to carry through to the divorce process. And I think the 91% of men who voluntarily say, okay, mom gets custody, I will take visitation, do so because they have that thought process. I'm the breadwinner, she's the caretaker. They don't understand that they are also nurturers. They can be as nurturing as a mother can be. So they step back, they voluntarily step back. And when I say self-imposed, I think it's more societal imposed.
So it's happened over, well, obviously over all of our history. And if, I went through my divorce 22 years ago. And the standard back then was that fathers, in most cases, had the children on Wednesday night and every second weekend. And that was probably, 99% of divorce cases. That's where it was then. But now, is there not more of a general feeling that at least starting place could be or should be at least looked at as 50-50?
There really is. There are no laws on the book that require that be a starting place. But judges have discretion, and most states are moving that way. They begin with 50-50 custody, and then if you want something different, you need to prove why it should be different. And in my opinion, that's a good thing.
Right.
You have the opportunity to say, if no fault divorce laws took away our ability to say I've been wronged or to defend ourselves against some wrong. But as a mother, in most court in the United States, you can't walk into a courtroom today assuming you're going to walk out with child custody, because judges are viewing the situation differently. And that's helpful in changing those societal patriarchal views of women are nurturers, men are breadwinners.
So we need to change men's point of view, because it's particularly, I'd call it bad, that men are actually spending less time with their children than they were before the divorce. And I guess as a consequence, mothers are spending more time with the children after a divorce. So can you just talk about those statistics for a moment in terms of how much time men were spending with their children before the divorce and how much time they're spending with their children after the divorce?
51% of men are spending either more than 1 day a week with their children or 4 days a month with their children. So when you divide up your ability to parent on, well, I get this day every week or I get these days every month, you really do become a visitor in your child's life. 27% of divorced dads disappear altogether. I've heard men say, we disappear because we've been sidelined, and I don't buy that excuse, because even if you feel sidelined, even if you only end up with Wednesday nights and 2 weekends a month, that's still your opportunity to play a role in your child's life. And no one should ever walk away from the opportunity to play a role in their child's life. But
so what can men do if they, I guess they have to do something right from the outset in terms of really demanding, requesting, however they need to go about doing it to get 50%, or at least let everybody know that they want to have 50% access or custody of their children. Would that be the place to start?
That would be the place to start. The place to start is the moment a divorce is filed. I write articles about all aspects of life. My most popular articles are about how marital assets are divided, how to deal with conflict. The articles I write about co-parenting and children are my least read articles. They should be the ones that people are reading. When I first started writing, I thought, okay, children and divorce, this is going to be a popular topic, but it's not. And I think to myself, okay, does that mean people don't care, men especially, or do they just give up from the start? Because they hear this propaganda, from online groups. It's biased, you have no chance. But if you hire a divorce attorney and tell that divorce attorney, I want to go for 50-50 custody of my children, and that attorney tells you there's no way you can win it, hire yourself another divorce attorney.
Right. If he's not even willing to put up the fight and to stand your ground for you,
right,
then it's not a good place to start, because it's
he's not. You want an attorney who is an advocate for you and your relationship with your children.
And at the same time, you're trying to create an amenable relationship with your ex-spouse. So we're not promoting that you want to go to battle, but you do have to stand your ground. There's a difference between being a unnecessary war and being a doormat. You want to stand up and protect your rights, and really you need to work with a professional in most cases, an experienced family lawyer, to have your best chance of securing the time that you really want to secure and need to secure with your children, not only for your own good, but also for the good of your children as well, right?
Right. Well, let me bring up a thought that I had, and I'm not a man, so I don't know. You can give me an opinion on this. Men don't like conflict, so they get into the middle of a divorce situation and they think, if I take this step, it's going to cause conflict. If I take this step, it's going to cause conflict and money. So they let that thought process guide where they go and what steps they take in the divorce process. And I think that's something that men need to let go of. Is I don't believe in adversarial divorce. I believe in putting all effort towards being civil to each other, especially if you have children. But if the only way to maintain the bond with your child is to become adversarial, you should not fear that.
Yeah, well, if you want a man's opinion, I think that you're right, that the men tend to think of themselves, we think of ourselves as the breadwinners, even though we may have a spouse who's also earning income in the family. And it may even be that the spouse, your wife, is earning more money than you. That still doesn't, in most cases, let the man off the hook. He doesn't all of a sudden think, then I don't need to bring in money. In most cases, there's, of course, exceptions. So that's the place where he comes from, at least speaking as a man and from men I talk to, and from 20 years of talking to men who've gone through divorce. But what happens then, of course, is that yes, he probably would avoid conflict and give up his role as nurturer, because he sees his primary role as being the one who supports the family financially. Again, it doesn't always make sense, but that's kind of the way we still see ourselves. And so it makes it more difficult for us to put up a challenge, because we also men tend to pick their fights, and they'd rather pick the easiest fights, or pick the fights that they have a better chance of winning. And if they feel that there's a natural bias or an inherent bias or a court bias against them getting custody of their children, we probably think, well, that's just one battle that I'd rather not fight. But we're saying, you got to fight the battle. Unfortunately, you've got to stand up for yourself. You've got to protect your right, because you do have a right to spend as much time as you can with your children.
And I think it's not only about that father's right. It's that child's right. Fight for the right of your child to have a father. Men don't understand. I read a study once that said children learn empathy from their fathers, and I was blown away by that because, well, how is that possible? Aren't mothers the caretakers, the nurturers, the soft-hearted ones? But the more I read, the more I understood. But there are so many aspects of the paternal influence on a child that men fail to understand. And I think they just don't view themselves as that impactful in their child's life.
And if somebody's listening to us thinking that we're, fathers' rights advocates and we only care about fathers, I think what we're saying is that we're parents' right advocates. We see that
Right.
each member of the marriage, the man and the woman, or could be two men, two women, have an equal right to parent the child. Now, what happens,
And we're
Cathy?
coming at it from the position we're coming at it from because not 83 to 91% of custodial parents are mothers. They don't need someone advocating for them.
Right.
So,
So we're making the point that men have to advocate for themselves and they have to do other things as well, even if they don't end up with a 50-50 custody arrangement. What are some suggestions that you have to keep men in the game, to keep them connected with their children? And what might happen if they are more connected is to have the relationship evolve with their ex-spouse so that they do share the children more as time goes on. So even if at the beginning it's not a 50-50 relationship arrangement, what can men do to keep themselves in the game and for their own purpose and for their helping their children?
If you don't get 50-50 custody, you're going to walk away with the divorce decree outlining what you do get. If it's every Wednesday night for dinner and every other weekend, never miss a Wednesday night, never miss an every other weekend. Put effort into building a civil relationship with your co-parent, because the more civil you become with each other, the more it benefits the child and the more willing the other co-parent is to working with you so that you can have more time. But there's, you can talk to your child every day. You don't have to see your child to talk to your child. If you have a child who has difficulty with homework, say, let's do your homework via Google Hangout or Skype, and
Right.
that can take the place of actually being there. It's FaceTime. And it's also telling that child, my dad cares enough for me to go out of his way to do this.
And things like parent-teacher interviews or going to a doctor or going to sporting events, these things can all keep you more connected to your children and your children more connected to you. Making sure you get their report cards so you know exactly how they're doing. And as you said earlier, making sure that you have as an amenable relationship as possible with your ex-spouse. And to have that, you may need to do some personal work on yourself. You may need to go to counseling or therapy or join a group or talk to a close friend who you can confide in. And particularly for men, we tend not to want to share intimate information with anybody. So you have to be careful who you talk to about it, but you've got to do something, right?
Exactly. Men find it, well, I think we all find it hard to be vulnerable, but men especially. Men are stoic. They want to, quote, man up and carry on. But when it comes to your relationship with your children, that affects your mental well-being. And you have to pay attention. You have to be willing to reach out for help. If it's nothing but sit your brother down and say, I'm not dealing with this. How do I deal with it? I need some help. There's no shame in that.
But for many men, and I include myself, when I went through my own divorce 22 years ago, I did feel shame. I did feel like I wasn't able to move through the process as well as I thought I would and hope that I would. But the truth is, you never know how you're going to react to a situation that's as dramatic as a divorce. You don't know how you're going to feel when you're standing at the doorstep coming to pick up your children, and your mind is still telling you that you're attached to this other person and things should be easier and you should be able to share more feelings, and still you don't have that partnership that you used to have. Your new relationship is to take care of your children. And it took me a lot of personal development work and trainings and courses and counseling to move me through the process. But it is a challenging process. So I want to acknowledge for the people who are listening to this, whether you're a man or a woman, I hope it's easy for you. But if it's not, then you just have to persevere and do whatever you have to get through. And you're getting through for yourself, you're getting through for your children, and you're getting through for the future of your family as well. One thing I did want to mention, Cathy, is that there is an opportunity in a divorce as well. We're talking about how challenging it is, but there's also an opportunity to transform yourself personally, to grow and develop out of this experience. And boy, I know that's a tough one to swallow if you're starting out on your divorce. It seems like there's no transformation possible here. There's no hope possible here. But there really is. If you take responsibility for your divorce and work on yourself, there really is an opportunity to help yourself and your children. And I know you've had that experience as well in coaching people through their divorce, Cathy.
Yeah, divorce doesn't happen in a vacuum. Um, it takes two to make a marriage, and it takes two to break a marriage. Yeah, one side may have done 80%, but you still did your 20%. I honestly believe that it's impossible to move on and heal after a divorce until we stop and do an internal internal investigation about what our role was and take responsibility for the role we played in the divorce. If you talk to someone who is divorced for 5 years and still stuck and angry, it's because that person has still not accepted responsibility for their role.
And Cathy, what about when a woman says, my husband didn't spend much time with our children while we were married. Why should he be given 50% of their time now that we're divorced? Do you have an answer for that or a thought about that?
Well, the simple answer is he should be given 50% because he no longer lives in the home and you're divorced. Just because you're divorced doesn't mean he should have less access to the children. It goes back to the nurturer breadwinner thing. In the majority of cases, dad is working longer hours than mom. Dad looks at mom as the caretaker, the nurturer. So he's out like the caveman, hoo, I'm making some money. I'm going to take care of my family. She's taking care of the kids. And he can come home from work at night and spend his hour with the kids and enjoy the kids and not worry about it. That doesn't mean he doesn't love the children as much as mom loves the children. That doesn't mean he doesn't have the same kind of bond that mom has with the children. And it certainly doesn't mean that just because you divorce, he doesn't have a right to access to his children.
One of the things I'll mention, Cathy, is that my former wife, after we'd been separated and going through the divorce process, probably a year or two after, and I was as involved as I could be with my children. Fortunately, we had a pretty amenable divorce, and we weren't, fighting a lot. And we both traveled, so we had to share the children. to help support our businesses and help our lives. So we've had more or less a 50-50 relationship, custody arrangement with our children. One of the things she mentioned to me, again, 1 or 2 years later, was she actually appreciated having more free time to herself that she didn't have before when we were married. She was always either with the children or with me, or the family was always around. She didn't have much free time on her own. And she found it difficult to actually deal with that free time and felt some guilt, actually quite a bit of guilt in having that free time. But as time went on, she grew to appreciate it, and she got into other interests and expanded and grew her things that she wanted to grow in and areas that she wanted to grow in as a result of it. So the opportunity is there, not just for the man to grow and develop, but it's also for the wife. And we're talking traditional here. It could be a man-man relationship, woman-woman relationship, but it's an opportunity. People really, if I can pass on any message, please see this as an opportunity. The fact is, you're getting a divorce. In most cases, it's not going to go back to the way it was. So embrace it and step forward, as Cathy said, and move on with your life. That would be the best you can do for yourself, for your children, and your ex will also benefit from that.
Right. There's, if you focus on your children, there's this myth that children are resilient. We don't, the children will adjust. Well, as an adult, if you couldn't adjust enough to live with your spouse, what makes you think that your children are going to magically be so resilient that they adjust with no problems to all of a sudden dad lives over here and I live over here with mom? It doesn't happen that way. And
Right.
we can't make the mistake that children are resilient, because they're not. And when you go through the process with your child's well-being and meeting their needs as your number one priority, you can't lose.
Right. Anything you want to say to sum things up, Cathy, or any information that you want to impart that you think would be helpful for people listening?
My children don't have a relationship with their father. He's one of the 27% that's absent. I'm passionate about 50-50 custody because I've seen the pain and the damage that my children have experienced due to having an absent father. I'm a firm believer that a father has as much right in their child's life as a mother does, and should, if at all possible, seek 50-50 custody. Don't get online and buy into angry rhetoric about bias in the court system. Test it out for yourself. See what your personal experience is with it.
I want to thank you for your time, Cathy, and for people who are listening to this seminar, please take the opportunity to look at the other seminars that are on thedivorceschool.com. Also, please visit our other websites that include divorcemag.com. We also have childrenanddivorceguide.com and moneyanddivorceguide.com. There's a wealth of information that will help you through your divorce. And as Cathy said, there's a lot of information out there. The information that we present through our websites and seminars is vetted by professionals and or people who are very experienced in the area of divorce. We hope it benefits you and your family. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.